Start now. So the topic is ISE. ISE full form is Identity Service Engine. ISE full form is Identity Service Engine. It is one of its kind of a AAA server. It is kind of a AAA server. What is AAA? Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting. What is authentication? Who am I? That means your basically identity, your username, or a MAC address. I'll explain that what is a MAC address, why it is coming into the picture. Authorization, what I can do, right? What I can do once I got authenticated, what I can do. And last is accounting, what I have done. So for AAA, right, ISE is right now the best, I'll say, as an appliance or as a virtual machine. This is the best appliance present right now into the market, which works for authentication, which works on the authorization, as well as which works with what accounting also. It creates the reports also over there. So basically, in a nutshell, apart from this, what ISE also give us is, first of all, he'll tell you who is that device or a user, what he can do, when he has logged in which network, where it has logged in, and how it has logged in. All the W's, all the question answer can be seen in one place, that is called as your ISE. It will tell you also about what are the access policies. I'll explain you what is access policy. That means whether the device will get a traditional networking or a new way of networking. A new way of networking or implementation is, we also gonna see that is called as TrustSec, right? This is what the ISE tells. ISE also tells you about the guest access. It also tells how the guest, if it's coming in your production, whether to give him the minimum internet access, right? And he should not be accessing any of the network resources. Okay, so that is guest access. It will provide you the BYOD access. What is BYOD? Bring your own device. It provides you that also. Okay. Next is what? It tells you what? CYOD also. It's a new terminology, that is choose your own box. Choose your own device. Okay. It provides us role-based access also. And it can integrate and create the reports with the third-party vendors also. Third-party vendors also for the contextual informations. Like ISE can get integrated with what? Next generation firewalls. ISE can integrate with Nexus boxes and so on and so forth. But for that, we require the license. And the technology to integrate with the third parties or another devices to get their contextual information. Contextual information means reporting type of a thing. Let's say, for example, I have a Nexus box, and that Nexus box I can integrate with the ISE or the firewall. I can integrate with the ISE, any devices. And from those firewalls or next generation firewall, you can pull out all the information, whatever the events has happened. And depending on that events, I can make ISE to take decision within the LAN network. And the process of doing this that is third party vendor integration. This process is called as PIX grid. Remember that, PIX grid. Okay, so these are the things what the ISE can give apart from a AAA server, basic AAA servers. Okay, so if I write certain points about this in the ISE, so ongoing topic is ISE today. Okay, ISE is what? Identity Service Engine. PIX grid, Gaurav, is nothing but in which the third party vendors are getting integrated. We're going to talk much more in detail. It's PIX grid. Okay, ISE, Identity Service Engine. It tells us it's a kind of a AAA server with much more advanced features like who is that device, who is controlling that. Okay, I've told that who, what, third, when, where, and how. Along with that, it tells about the access policies. Sorry, Mohiddin, I just started. I'm repeating it only. Access policies. Seventh. So Cisco Eyes is the next. We'll say that there are many add-on features in the Cisco Eyes that they have given, which was not available in the ACS, like your PIX grid, just what I've told you, Sajan, right? Apart from that, this PIX grid is the new feature that has been added. The integration with the next generation devices, like next generation firewall. Apart from that, BYOD concept was not there. Yes, the new type of ACS is nothing but called as ICE now. Okay. Seventh, access policies. After that, role-based access. Eighth is threat, that we'll see later, and guest access. BYOD. What is the full form of BYOD? Bring your own device. Tenth, CYOD. This we also see later. Choose your own device. And that's it. These are the major things that has been done. And 11th one, which I said, PIX grid also is there. Okay, so these are the major things that the ICE provides us, right? With respect, it's an advanced format of what your ACS itself. Now, I'll write few more points. That is your Cisco identity solutions, more benefits. What are the benefits with that? Okay, benefits. First, it tightens security posture. I'll explain all these points with, this is the actual one which I wanted to tell, contextual, access control, and granular policy enforcement. Sadhan, I'll explain that. Enforcement. Second, helps prove compliance with detailed logs of users and devices on the network. Third, it creates efficiencies through automation. This is another difference between ACE and ICE. ICE can integrate it with the automated tools over there, right? And automation to simplify services delivery things over there. Does it make sense? 3 points I've explained it over here. ISE does one more important thing. ISE does what? Profiling. We'll again see much more in detail. Profiling as well as posturing. It does these two things, profiling as well as posturing. So what is profiling? Basically, on the set of certain attributes, I'll say that, on the set of certain attributes, it is going to work over there. What are the attributes? What are the probes? We'll see later on. Just today we have just started. So basically, profiling is nothing but in which the probes, remember that, probes. What are the probes? I'll give you an example right now, like radius, like DHCP, DNS, HTTP, Nmap. All these different kinds of protocols in ISE world are called as, remember, probes. So these network probes used by the profiling services provided in the ISE. These probes are nothing but the method used to collect the attributes, remember like this, attributes, collect the attributes or a set of attributes, okay, or a set of attributes from an endpoint on our network, okay. So these are the probes that allow us, these are the probes which allow us to create or update an endpoint with their matched profile. Let's say, for example, what I mean by profiling. I do have a PC with Windows 7. I do have a laptop with Windows 10. I have a web server with 2012. I have a laptop with the Mac OS, a mobile phone with Android, with iOS, or any other platform. Yeah, these are the two big Mac, iOS or the Android. All these devices are coming in your network. Okay, all these devices are coming in your network. When it gets connected with the ISE, there will be certain probes, like these are the few of the examples I've given. We'll see much more in detail what are different types of probes. They collect the information about these devices, like which operating system is this, okay, which brand of like hardware, which brand, whether it's a BlackBerry phone, whether it's a Nokia phone, whether it's a Mac phone, or no, sorry, iPhone, or whatever the phones are there, they're brands, right? Which operating system of Mac is there? Is it 10.1.2 Sierra? Like I have, I don't know what is my version. Like my version is 10.13.6. This is the Max OS Sierra version, like this. There are different types of this. So all these probes carries the information, like from the server, whether it's a Windows 2012 server, whether it's 2012, so it's a data center version or an enterprise version, Windows 10, whether it's a licensed one or not, like this. All this information, right, will be carried to the ISE with the help of these probes. And these probes, not only this thing, what is the IP address, what is the MAC address, and so on and so forth of these particular devices. And there are predefined profiles which is being created, like if a Windows 7 is coming, so it will automatically goes into the Windows 7 workstation folder automatically. You don't have to, let's say for example in your production 50,000 devices are there, and you want to make sure that like all the devices will categorize them like the way you do in the production, right? Let's understand that there is a HR team. You have divided that what these are the HR guys. Then we have the finance guys. Then we have the DevOps guys. Then we have the management guys, and so on and so forth. You have done it, right? In a very same way, in the ISE, right? We have created the profile for the endpoints. For what? For the endpoints. We have created the profiles for the endpoint. Now, how in the world these devices will automatically go in those profiles? That will be done with the help of these probes. And the concept of making the devices sending in the correct profile, that concept is called as profiling. Does this make sense now with everyone? Just try to understand like this. Like Hari came into the office, right? You belong to a network team. Okay. What happens when you enter into the office premises? There are multiple teams are there. That means the profiling has been done. Here the HR team will sit. Here the finance team will sit. Here the network team, and here all the managers are sitting. What's going to happen, Hari? The moment you enter into the premises, you automatically go into the networking team, isn't it? Because you know your roles and responsibility. Someone has already told you that, boss Hari, you belongs to network team. In a very same way, in the eyes, there are so many different profiles has been created, like Cisco devices, right? Under Cisco devices, access point. Under Cisco devices, IP phone. Under Cisco devices, your networking boxes. Like this, profiling has been done. Multiple profiles has been created. Android phones, iPhones, Mac phone, your Macintosh, all the profiles has been created in the eyes. The moment any endpoint device gets connected with the eyes, right? Those endpoints, how the eyes will come to know that this device belongs to this particular profile, because there are certain probes which are running between the eyes and the endpoint users. These protocols collect the information for the endpoints and tell the eyes, boss, this box belongs to Windows World and in Windows 10. This box belongs to an iPhone and this belongs to an iPhone category over there. And the process of sending a device to the correct profile, that concept is called as profiling. And profiling is done with the help of these particular protocols which I've written over there. So in the, let's say for example, in next 2 days we're gonna talk about the posture. So I'm right now gonna hold it, but try to understand. Posture means, the name itself says that. Posture means basically try to understand. It is telling you the state of something. Posture. It is going to tell you, or that allows you to check the state, also known as the posture. What posture that particular device, what is the state of that device, right? Whether that device is being authenticated, whether that device is not being authenticated, whether that device is being rejected, whether it's being allowed. If it's being allowed, any change of authorization is there or not. That is basically called as a posture over there. We'll come on that particular point in few days, I'll say that. We have what? Identity service engine. We are talking about that. I'll come back on Sadhan that particular point. I've just started. Identity service engine. What is identity service engine? Let me start with the word called as identity itself. Okay. Let me start with the identity itself. Now, what is an identity? An identity can be of two types in the networking world. Right? Identity can be of two types in the networking world. All the devices, and we are doing identity for only those devices which requires an IP. The devices which require, the networking devices, those requires an IP. There will be certain devices which requires a username, okay, which will be having a username present on that. So that becomes an identity. There are certain devices like your printer, right, or your fax machine, few of the IP phones, your access point. These are the devices which does not have any what? The username also. Try to understand like this. There is no username present for that. Okay. For them to come into the world of the ISE, let's say for example, I have a PC. On that particular PC, let's say for example, this is Windows 7. Okay. This is Windows 7 PC. On this particular PC, I want to make sure that authentication needs to be done. What is authentication? Who am I? Who am I? Okay, what's its identity? So this Windows machine can come with its own username. Okay, I'm not talking a username by which you lock the system. I'm not talking that username. Every PC requires an internet connection, right? To provide an internet, no matter intranet or internet, you should have an adapter that we call as a NIC adapter. On top of this NIC adapter, to get an IP, you should have a username and the password. username and the password present over there. Okay, so there are certain devices where you can enable this username and the password for that particular adapter, but there are certain devices where this particular concept is not available. So then the identity for that particular device will become its MAC address. Okay, so what ISE does, ISE is a box which provides us a AAA. I've already told you that ISE is a box which provides us a AAA information over there. So whatever the identity of that box, maybe the username, or maybe what maybe the MAC address of that particular device, ISE will receive this two information. Among those, one of the information will be received, and ISE then provide what? The services. What are the services? That I have already told you, AAA services. Whether this particular username or MAC address is present in my database, yes or no. Whether if it's being present, I have authenticated. So what this user can do, whether he can work in VLAN number 10, or whether I want to tell him that you can access only 3 server, like server number 4, server number 5 and server number 6. This is basically what? Authorization. What you can do, you can be in one VLAN. Let's say for example, I told that you can just do the communication in VLAN 8. And in VLAN 8 also I can tell that boss, you can just access out of 100 only 4 servers are allowed to you. That is what authorization. And once this is being done, whatever the access, by what time he has opened this server number 4, in server number 4 with which protocol he is accessing, whether it is browsing, whether it is doing telnetting to that, or whether he is doing any file sharing protocol, that is all dependent on what accounting, what he is doing, whether he has done something silly or they over there or not. All these are what the services which is being provided, which is present inbuilt as an engine over there. There is an engine which provides the services to the identity for the this particular appliance. Does this make sense now with everyone? Do that. So let's go with the slide. What is an identity? According to the Oxford Dictionary, an identity is serving to establish who the holder or the owner or a viewer is by bearing their names and often their other details such as their signature or the photograph. This is nothing but an identity. I've taken this from the Oxford Dictionary itself. Someone could walk up to you and say that his name is Nitish. But how would you know that identity is true? You would need some type of trusted evidence, such as the third party form of identification. Say, for example, if I'm coming to you and saying that, boss, I'm Nitish, I will keep my what? Passport or either a driver license or his or her credentials over there. In the networking world, identity can be a username. Identity can be username with password for a user or a MAC address, burnt-in address of that particular endpoint devices which is present over there. These information, right, which needs to be checked next to the ISE, as I said over here, there will be an ISE, okay, where all the devices, either username with password or its MAC address is going to be received by the ISE. To check that, ISE builds its own identity store. Okay, ISE builds its own identity, what? A store. This identity store is called as a database. Now this database can be internal or this database can be external. Let's take both the use cases. When you define a new username, let's say for example a username, a new entry has been done in your production, right? You can define a user, can create a username or for him the password in the internal database. That means you are storing that in the ISE itself. When that username is being stored in the ISE internal database, that internal database of the ISE is called as SAM. This is the name of the database. This is also called as SAMDB, SAM database. Remember that. So whenever the ICE is holding the information, holding the identity, try to understand like identity. Since starting I'm saying that in the networking world, there are only two types of identities which are present. One which is called as the username or the password, and another one is what? The MAC address for the device. That identity can be stored in the internal database of ICE that we call as what? SAM database, or that ID can be stored in any external servers like Active Directory, like your LDAP servers, and so on and so forth. There also. Now let's say, take for example, there are two use cases I'll tell you. Sam is the name. Sam is the name, Sajid. Like, I don't know whether you heard about it in UCS, right? Fabric Interconnect also have the same name, SAMDB, where all the information, all the policies are going to be get stored. SAM is just a name that they are given for the databases. Same over here in the ICE also. What I'm trying to say that there are two use cases that I'll tell you. One, the company today for the first time, they have started something, new organization has started. And second, it's an old organization which is running the doing the same thing with Active Directory, which is doing the same thing with the Active Directory. Now your question is, what's the difference between an Active Directory and your basically your eyes? That I'll say that I've already written. Your Active Directory, if I'll just write it down, I'll come back. This is a huge topic that we're gonna see later on. Active Directory versus ICE, if I'll write. Active Directory tells us about who are you, what you can do, and what you have done. But ICE gives you many other features also like this. That's the basic. Right now, I can tell you that the basic differences between Active Directory as well as an ICE. Now there is an old organization in which 1 lakh usernames and the password. Like this is my Active Directory. This is where I've opened this paint. I'll show you. You can see that there is an Active Directory I've already configured. Can you see over here Active Directory usernames and computers over here? And there you can see I have created multiple users are there. Can I create a new user? Yes, I can create a user over here. What's the name? Let's say for example Nitish, and my last name is Sharma. I've written it over there. What is my login name? Nitish at cisco.com. Next. User must change the password. Nope, cannot change the password, and password never expires. Account is disabled. What's the password? Let's say, for example, Cisco at the rate 1234. Cisco at the rate 1234. This is what an Active Directory does. I have created a user called as Nitish Sharma. Now, if I do certain properties, can you see that many other descriptions I can tell? What is the address, what is my home address, account, these are the login hours. I can tell that Nitish can see. I don't know whether anyone know about this or not. Sorry, login hours. Let's say for example, these are the login denied. What is this blue color means? Blue color means this is on Sunday from this 1 to 2 o'clock. I can log in this particular devices. Okay. From 6 over here, you can see that. After that, from 3 to 12 a.m. right, next day also, I can still have the login permitted. That means I can define a user when he can log in and when he can not log in. So let's say for example, I'll remove all this just to show you. I want only on Monday Nitish can log in from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. like something like this. So these are the login permitted. So the moment the Nitish comes inside this an Active Directory over there, if this login permitted or login denied is there, accordingly that user will be used. This is one of the use case of an Active Directory over there. Okay, profile, I can create a script, login for whatever I am doing can be sent with the help of a script to a certain device where all the information will be provided over there. Remote desktop services, remote control, comports, what are there? There are sessions are there when it needs to be get connected, where any session is being active or idle. Please make sure that if I'm not doing anything for next 5 minutes, the session will be terminated automatically and blah blah things, and you have done what the apply. Like that, you can define. Can you see that multiple user are already defined over here? What I'm trying to say that in the second scenario, it's an old organization. where 1 lakh users are already been there, or more than that, 1 million users are working. Let's say, for example, there is a production where 1 million users are already working. And tomorrow, if the Cisco company approaches you, their sales team and their sales guys approach you and said that we have one product which is called as an ISE, which is not only gives you triple W what are you, who are you, what you can done, and what you have done. Right. Apart from that, AAA, we can give you many other approximately 15 to 20 new features more. Will you like to buy that particular product? This old organization says, yes, I'll going to buy it. Now what's the problem? You have now the ICE and you are already have an ongoing active directory where 1 million users are already is present. Now, it will be a nightmare for that engineer who has done CCI security from Netmetric and got a job over there. Now, what happens is he's not going to write all 1 lakh users' names over there. There is a provision which we call as an integration. That means this ICE can be integrated with Active Directory, and you don't have to call all the attributes and the features that you have defined in AD will require over here again. You can do an activation over there. And let's say, for example, there is a new organization, right? There is no problem. You have an ICE. There you need to add individually all the users, and the password needs to be manually added over there. So this is what I was trying to say in this particular slide. What is an identity store? I believe everyone now understood what is an identity. In the networking world, identity is nothing but a MAC address or the username and password. But this identity needs to be stored whether internal or whether it's being defined externally. That is being taken a decision by that engineer who is performing in that ICE. Now it is up to that engineer whether you should know that as an engineer over there, boss, whether this identity is present within the database or whether I need to integrate this with an external resources over there. So whenever the individual entities are there, what is the best practice? No, it depends on you. If you don't have an active directory in your production, right, then so you need to add manually all these devices, isn't it, Mustafa? If you have an active directory and then you are going to perform and deploying the ICE over there, make sure that you add active directory, you do the integration with the active directory over there, or the LDAP server which is present over there. So each individual identity store is referred to as identity sources. You can combine multiple identity sources in an identity source sequence that can be processed for a user and the endpoint authentication and authorization. Now, what I mean by this over here, this is called as identity source sequence. Let's understand what is an identity source sequence over here. Let's say, for example, a ABC user is coming. A ABC user is coming towards the ICE, okay, towards the ICE to check for an authentication. Whether boss my and this particular device is having a username and the password which is present over there. The point here, which I'm trying to say that this ICE can be integrated with any AD. This can be integrated with any LDAP servers, right? And so on and so forth. Over here, can you see that internal endpoints, internal users, guest users, AD, all AD joins. There could be a process there. That means in the ICE, I have internal users of this is in your SAM database, which remember I said that this is the internal users, whether it should be checked in internal endpoints. This is another folder. Try to understand, like, these are the registers in a class, right? These are the registers. One register says what? Internal user. So a student came into a classroom and he is saying present ma'am, and this ma'am is checking it's present in the database. Where is my register? In which register this student name is there? Whether it's there in internal user, whether it's there in internal endpoints, whether it belongs to a guest users or not, whether it is active directory or LDAP or blah blah, many other things are there. Now you have a provision that you can select in this way. Whenever the user is coming for the authentication, it should check only in internal users. You can make one kind of a profile like that. You can create a profile like that. Another profile could be what? Whenever a user is coming, I'll check in internal users as well as in the active directory. in both. But whenever I'm checking in both, I will first always check in internal user and then I'll check into the internal external AD. And this is what called as identity source sequence. What is identity source sequence? It tells us if any user is coming towards the ISE for the AAA, first check its availability in the endpoints, users, then guest users, then AD, then all AD joint points. Now, right now, these are the database which is being available. Can you see that? But right now, none of the devices is being selected over here. So what we generally do with this arrow mark, we tell that first, whenever the user is coming, check it, that user in internal users, then go for the guest, and you can change the sequence. That's why this is called as identity. Check its source according to the sequence which is being selected over here. Does this make sense now? Are we going good? As an overview, all the Cisco identity services overview over here. What is an ISE? Basically, as ISE is nothing but a centralized. This is what I was trying to tell. A centralized security solution that not only automates, but it can tell you who are you, what, when, where, how, compliant, role-based, BYOD, guest, access policies, what are the nexus, and can you see that this is the PIX grid controller I was talking about? Along with that, this ISE, now the question is whether it's a physical box or it's a VM. So I answered it, it is both. You in the production you will always see this ISE as a physical box. What are the hardware? Tomorrow we'll see that. And there will be certain VMs also which is being present over there. There are certain VMs which are also present over there. So it can be deployed as a virtual machine, or it can be deployed as what? As a physical machine. Both are absolutely fine. Both will be working over there. No problem in that. So these are the basic points that I wanted to talk about the eyes, that I've already given you the what do you call that, benefits. I've already given notes also on this, no problem. So I'll move further ahead and tell about, yes, these are challenges which I was talking about. So one of the challenge is what you see it over here. One of the challenge is what, allowing the personal mobile devices. Let's say, for example, a customer wants to allow employees or the guests to use the personal mobile devices such as smartphones and the tablets to access the certain what services onto the network. So there is a solution by that. Can you see that? Allowing, this is what called as BYOD. This challenge is called as a BYOD. BYOD means what? Bring your own devices. When you go into the production, right, you can bring your own laptop also. You can bring your own mobile phone, and whenever they are trying to get connected with any of the Wi-Fi users over there, what is going to happen? Cisco BYOD solutions allow employees to self-register their personal devices, and then they get a permit those devices to access the appropriate services in the controlled, secured, or the auditable fashions. It also allows for device management and the ability to mark enrolled devices as lost, very good point, lost or stolen, and have the system automatically manages the access accordingly. So if a person lost its phone, right, I have to immediately, like what do you do if you lose your phone? You go to the police station, you first do a FIR, after that you ask your concerned ISP to switch off your numbers that is being lost, or same thing with the credit card also, right? So that is what basically I also called as what, yeah, remote wipe. That is also called as COA, kind of a CO, which is called as what? Change of authorization. I have given you an authority to do a full access. But let's say, for example, immediately if someone reported to the ICE administrator that the device to whom you have given the full access, that device is being stolen or being lost somewhere, immediately the ISE administrator will change his authority, and this concept is called as what? Change of authorization. So basically what is happening in the world, mobile devices, what I was talking about, these mobile devices are basically a transforming culture. I believe everyone agrees on that, and they are playing a very important role in the IT challenges or IT managers. Everyone nowadays can connect with their mobile phone also, right? So people used to do what? They are bringing their own personal devices. It can be a mobile phone, which I am talking about. It can be an iPad. It can be their own personal laptops, and so on and so forth. They are bringing all these personal devices to the workplace and connect them with what? The corporate network. Now, what happens is when you go into the production, the company provides you their own laptop, and that laptop at the back end is getting connected with the security department. That whatever the website you opening, whatever the folders you have, they can access everything over there. Your laptop is being accessible. But now what is happening is the users are bringing their own devices also, like mobile and all this. So how to work with them? So whenever the BYOD concept is there, whenever you're bringing your own devices, Cisco Eyes does what? Allows these guests, there will be a guest user. Remember, a moment ago I said that whenever a user is needs to be get authenticated, there was a folder called as guest user, right? I can say that any user which belongs to a guest user over there, right? Guest user, guest folder, check it over there, and if it's authenticated, give him the basic network security. That means on your device, bring your own device, no problem in that. But whenever you are bringing that, there are two things that I can give. Let's say, for example, if I am the ICE engineer, if you are bringing your own device, there are two things that I can give. I'll make first of all as a guest user, no problem. But I'll give you only the limited access. That means you can go only to the internet, but your network resources of our production is not being accessible on this particular folder. Another option is, let's say for example, you're a director of that particular company, and they are their boss. I have to bring my own device also, and I want my networking also to be done over there. I need to do what? See all the network resources which is being present over there. So I will make that particular device. I'll add over here in what my identities in my own SAM database. You can authenticate that device also, and plus I will start accounting you in detail. Deep accounting, that is also called as a deep accounting. That means first of all you are bringing your own device, no problem. But if you are trying to access the network resources, how will come to know that you haven't stolen any data over there, or you are not manipulating any data over there? So everything will be accounted over there for you bring your own devices over there. So challenge accepted by the ICE. I say that, and this is what the advantages point over ACS. ACS can't do in depth like the ICE is doing it over there. So I believe the first challenge is cleared with everyone, isn't it? The second challenge says what, which we have already had a discussion, device identification. Plenty of network or different types of traffics are there, which is called as a printers, IP phones, mobile phone, notebooks, tablet requires huge amount of a time and administrative efforts need for a proper device classification for further controller access based on different access policies for different device group. This is what basically answer is what profiling, which we have already discussed it, right? There are so many devices, so many things are there. So in addition to what authentication and authorization, which I have already discussed, ICE does profiling also for us, right? So it basically does what? It analyzes. All right, I'll change the ink. It analyzes. It does what? The analysis of an endpoint. Whatever the endpoints are shown over here, these all are the endpoints. It does the analysis of the endpoint, network character, traffic characteristics also, like whether that device is Windows IP phone, I've already told, whether it's a Cisco IP phone, Avaya, it's a Google Android or Apple iPhone, and all this. These all analysis can be used to develop an advanced authorization profile. That means what I'm trying to say, once a user get authenticated, but I just not only want that user to be get authenticated, I want whenever authenticate, whenever it is coming from Windows world. If that device is trying to log in, if that user is trying to log in from the Apple devices, I should not give him any authorization. He cannot do that. So on the basis of the devices also, you can play around with authentication as well as an authorization over there. Okay, so what is profiling? Profiling dramatically decreases the time and the efforts required for the proper device classification. This automated process, Gaurav, you asked this, examines network traffic and the analysis it for the specific characteristic that the identity device type and operating systems such as Windows laptop, IP phone, Google, Android, and all this produce. So this is basically called as profiling, and this profiling will be done automatically or automate this process with the help of certain probes which I was telling you about that, and we're going to talk about the probes later into the section. Is challenge number 2 is cleared with everyone? So next challenge is this: proving the compliance. In most cases, it's not enough to perform just authentication of the end users. Compliance check of the endpoint devices such as computers, laptops, or smartphones can be even more important just authentication of the users sitting behind the devices. This is your answer called as Cisco posturing or MDM. What is MDM? I'll let you know in the later section. Right. But what is this? Posture services allows you to check the state. This is, I've already told you, state, also known as the posture of all the endpoints that are connecting to the network for compliance with the corporate security policies. Okay. Now, what I mean by that? Whenever an endpoint, remember I said that it is going to connect with the Cisco Eyes. The profiling always happens first. Okay, profiling always happens first. Once the profiling has been done, what's going to happen? Once the profiling is done, then those particular folders, let's for example IP phone and all blah blah thing, it comes with an OS of this. Let's say for example one more thing, we have a Mac OS, it is coming from 10.6.12.os. I'm having Windows 10 or Windows 7. In that Windows 7 it is using a data center enterprise license and so on and so forth. Many other things are there, right? All these profiling which has been done will be running against the rules which is being, what are the, which is being defined in the ISE, predefined, right? Depending on that, we'll take the posturing. Posturing means once I got to know about that user, try to understand like this. I'll go much more in detail because otherwise you will get confused. I have this ABC user, right? And on the basis of this ABC user, when it comes to the ISE, if that username is already being present, right, he will get authenticated, he will get authorization, and then we'll start doing the accounting for that. No problem. But nowadays, what happens is, I don't want that user, this username can be used. I say, for example, my name is Nitin Sharma. I can give this username and password to what? To, have you seen that in INE? Yeah, I mean, no problem. Have you seen that INE? Let's say, for example, an INE or any other vendors, right? What's going to happen? You have the all pass access. I don't know whether you know about that. Anyone knows all pass access is there, right? With the INE, in which you can see all the things over there, right? Or any XYZ vendors are there. What happens with that? Whenever a username and password, whether you have given a username and the password to access the INE videos, all access, right? Now, what going to happen is you also have the, let's say, for example, let me tell you in this way. There is a user, multiple users are there, right? There is an ICE and there is an INE server. INE trainings are there. I believe everyone knows that. What is going to, or I'll write instead of I to do publicity, I'll do ABC, right? ABC company is there. That ABC company is given what? That ABC company has given what the privileges like uh, access all the videos, all videos. You have paid that much amount, you can see only data center 2.1, like Netmetric is providing 2.1, and then we have security version 5, routing and switching and blah blah, whatever the videos. And one of the video is you can access all the videos in one shot. A user enrolled with that ABC company, okay, and that ABC company has given them what, a username and the password. Done. That username and password has been given to that particular guy who has just enrolled for that. Now this user is very smart enough. What he did, this username and password he has given to all his friends also. You get my point? Now every user can, at that particular moment, everyone can access this company, isn't it? Whatever the videos are there. To protect that thing, we have what? So whenever a user, that's where the ISE comes very handy. Whenever a user is trying to get into it and trying to access abc.com, if it goes first from the ISE with the help of the probes going to learn what this user is coming from Windows 7. Now, before doing that, what I'm gonna do, I'll implement both the things. What with the ISE, how can I protect it? I'll give a username and password for this guy. Along with that, I'll say that whenever it is coming from Windows 7, I'll take the MAC address also of that device. This is also called as MAC binding. So we are giving what, more granularity. Whenever a user is coming from Windows 7 with Internet Explorer 10 only, let's say for example, to make it more granular, with this blah 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 MAC address over there, then only do the authentication for that user, and once it is getting authenticated, give him the authorization. Okay. Now any change, if the ISE is going to check all the behaviors because he is doing the accounting also. Any behavior changes that I feel that this user is doing something fishy over there, I will immediately apply what, change of authorization. And the moment I have given him the full access, I'll deny it all the part. Does it make sense with everyone? Is this challenge cleared with everyone? Okay. The third challenge, or fourth, maybe the fourth challenge. The user based access control instead of the IP based. This is one of the good point about the Cisco what, ISE. Now ISE works on a principle of one thing which is called as, I'll tell you before introducing that particular technology. Previously what used to happen with the ACS, right, or any Active Directory, whenever a user comes over here, the basis of the username and the password, we do what, the identification for that makes sense, no problem in that. Okay. And that device will get an IP address over there, right? Let's say for example this device is connected with a switch and that switch is having a DHCP pool. From that DHCP pool you got an IP over there. Right now this user is in what, building number 1 and floor number 1. When he goes to the another floor, floor number 8, right? Do you think that it will have the same access? No. A new switch will be there, a new access point will be there, which is providing the new SSID. Or let's say, for example, tomorrow it has changed the entire building. He's coming from one building to the another building itself, right? Do you think that still the IP will be the same? So the moment the user is moving its mobile phone along with him from a floor to another floor or from a building to another building, right? Again, on the basis of on the IP. So it doesn't mean that that particular user, whenever is coming to this, in all the switches, if a firewall is present over there, you have to write what, an access list, whether this user can do a perform this or this user can perform this or that. What Cisco Eyes does, on the basis, instead of on the basis of IP giving him the authorization, will give a new tag system which is called a security group access. Someone asked me that what is a trust sec also. This concept is called as a trust sec, which gives a tag which is called as SGT. Cisco group tags are there, 16-digit values are there. No matter this user ICE is going to provide all the users one tag, no matter wherever, because ICE will be a uniform platform for the entire company, right? Where you can do the load balancing with someone has written like PSN and the PAN, which is called as a personas, which we'll see in the later section. But as a uniform ICE will be deployed in your production. So no matter it is going from one place to another place, from one floor to another floor, from one building to another building, no matter how many times its IP is going to be get changed, we are going to decide its authorization or authenticity on the basis of the tag which this ICE is going to provide. And that's this new technology is called as a Cisco Trust Sec. So if I'll go back over here, let's read. A customer wants to correlate the network access policies with business groups. However, employees may use one of the several mobile devices to log in through the wireless network. And the device IP address may change as the employees move throughout the campus to attend its meeting during the day. What Cisco Eyes has given. For that user who is mobile, who is going from one place to another place to attend its meeting, Cisco Eyes has given what? A security group access that can be used to separate the users into the business group and define access privilege unique to each group. Cisco SGA, which is called a Cisco Group Access Technology, correlates the username, login, and password with the device IP it logs in from and tags the packet coming from that device and track the devices its room and changes the IP itself. So what ICE does is I do have a user present over there. I do have a user over there, and his username in the first attempt. In the first attempt, for the first time, it requires the username and the password. Okay, I will have that username and password over here present in the Cisco Eyes. What Cisco Eyes does, it performs one classification methodology. As if now, if you don't understand the classification, no problem. One day we gonna only talk about Cisco Trust Set. Okay, Trust Set. There it will be getting cleared. But just as if now on the first day, I'm just trying to explain one thing. If this IP keep on changing, if this user is present right now in building 1, floor number 1, if he moves to the building number 2, floor number 15, a new wireless access will be there. Might possible he can get a 13.1.1.IP, but he still wants to connect with that business group. What ICE is going to do? ICE does a classification. Instead of performing on the basis of the IP, I will give him an extra tag. Let's say, for example, the tag is Nitij underscore mobile phone, whatever the name you want to give, and whether it's a mobile phone, whether it's a laptop that a user is carrying from one place to another place, but there will be a tag that will be allocated over here. And on the basis of the tag, not on the basis of IP, on the basis of the tag, no matter wherever I'm roaming in my campus, I will get the authorization and authentication. And this is one of the most important. One of the Sadan, that tag is 16-digit value. It's not decimal number or text. I'll let you know about that. It's a 16-digit value that automatically gets generated in a hexadecimal value. Okay. So no matter wherever you are going, whether you are going from campus 1 to campus 2 or campus 3, the tag will always remain with that particular device. And the best part is, all the time with the help of those probes, right? ICE will come to know that it's new IPs also. Whenever it is going from point A to point B to point C, whatever the new IPs that has been generated, those IPs will be also seen in the ICE for use of what? Integrity. It is also integrated with VXLAN. Nope, VXLAN is a different concept than this SG tag. So tag is assigned to the user or the device. Both you can use both the ways, right? It can be assigned to a user or it can be assigned to a device in both the ways. Okay, and this is called as a classification in security task. If you have multiple devices, so absolutely for every device you have to have create a new tag over there. Remember, Gaurav, we have done in PC1 and PC2. This is what I was talking about. Okay. NAT. NAT devices are there. Now, before this NAT and all, let's talk something else. Whenever in the ISE, remember, you need to perform a AAA, right? I believe everyone understands a little bit now about the AAA. You want to do that, so that AAA will be performed on the basis of identities, right? In generic, in the starting, the identities always used to be called as username along with its password. Whenever this identity will be checked with the help of an ISE and then perform a AAA, this entire wholesale process comes in a framework. That framework is called as 802.1x framework. Okay, 802.1x framework. This is a framework, it's not a protocol, it's a framework. Under this framework, there are three major components that you always need to remember. What is that? First, saying this, in 802.1x framework, we have three major components. One is called as what? Supplicant. Second is called as authenticator. And third is your AAA service. Okay? Now let's understand one scenario. I have a user over here, this particular user, and I do have a printer also over here. A printer is present. Both are connected to a particular switch, maybe a catless switch. Let's take for example 3850 cat OS switch. Here the interface is, let's say for example gig 1/0/1, and here the interface is gig 1/0/2. Two different interface, right? You have one PC, Windows 7 PC, and another one is the printer which is present over. Now this switch at the back end going to be get connected with the AAA server. In our case, this AAA server will be ISE for us. Okay, this AAA server will be nothing but an ISE in our case. Yes, what's going to happen is the username will be present for this particular device. This username will be sent towards the ISE over here. Okay, this username will be sent towards the ISE, where ISE is going to perform what the AAA and all this. And in the another scenario where the printer is there, its MAC address is going to be sent where? Towards the ISE for its identification. Whenever the authentication is being done on the basis of the username and the password, that phenomena is called as in the ISE called as .1x procedure. What is .1x procedure? In which the username against its password is going to be get authenticated, and on the basis of that you are getting authorization rules. Whenever a device is getting authenticated on the basis of MAC address, physical burnt in address or burnt in address, that type of a phenomenon is called as MAP, which is called as MAC address bypass. MAC address bypass, and that phenomena in which only the MAC address is going to be get checked for the AAA, that is called as MAP authentication method or MAP authorization method. I hope these 2 points are clear, but the story doesn't end over here. The device which is going to be get authenticated, these devices in the 802 framework, these devices are called as supplicant. The devices on which the username or their MAC address is going to be checked against the ISE. The device which tells, because these Windows 7, there are 50,000, let's say for example, endpoint devices are there. So it doesn't mean that all 50,000 can get connected with the ISE. There are not so many ports. So the device by which, generally in case what, the switches will be there because the endpoints are always get connected to what, the access layer switch, isn't it? The switches which carry forwards this information towards the eyes regarding this, right? Those devices, those switches are called as authenticator, or also called as NAD. What is NAD? Network attached device, or also called as NAS, which is called as what? Network attached switch. Different names are there. So the device which carry forwards that information towards the eyes, the mediator device, that device is called as authenticator. Now the question is, what are the protocols that are running over there? This username and username information as well as the password information, because I believe everyone agrees that the port over here by which the endpoints are connected, this will be the layer 2 word. Remember, spanning tree, port fast, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN is this, blah blah things. Everything is doing happening from here. This particular port on the switch till the mode of this particular Windows 7, right? The protocol that is carrying this information about this username, that protocol is called as EAP. What is EAP? EAP full form is Extensible Authentication Protocol. What is that? Extensible Authentication Protocol. Remember that. Okay. Now, this extensible authentication protocol is a protocol, it's a layer to base, it's a protocol which in itself always carries two things. What is the username and what is the password? This EAP message is going over what, get encapsulated over LAN. So this packet becomes what, EAP over LAN, because this is your layer 2 segment. So EAP protocol, remember like this, EAP protocol carries your what? Carries your what? Username and the password, and that username and the password will be get encapsulated over the LAN to reach to the switch. Now between the switch and the eyes, there should be a communication also should happen. Now on the switch, let's say for example, your ISE IP address is 10.10.10.10. Let's say for example, this ISE as well as this switch needs to do a communication. Now generally what happens is the communication between the ISE and the switch is a layer 3 communication. Remember that. Here it's a layer 2, here it's a layer 3. Now, how in the world, the switch is going to send this EAP messages towards this AAA server. This switch is going to, the moment it receives over there, it de-encapsulated the overland messages over there. It carry forwards the same. It has now the same EAP message present within. But to send this EAP message towards the eyes, it is going to re-encapsulate it with the protocol called as radius or TECAX plus. So can I say that between the supplicant and the authenticator, the protocol running is EAP. Between the authenticator and the AAA, still the protocol running is EAP. But these messages, this EAP cannot on its own can flow from one point to another point. So that requires an encapsulation. So between the supplicant and authenticator, it's a layer 2 segment in which it is going to be get encapsulated over EAP over LAN. And between the authenticator and a AAA server, this radius packet will be added to reach towards the ISE over there. Does this make sense with everyone now? Let's go one more time. I have a Windows 7 machine. Believe anyone knows how to give that username and password to the Windows 7 machines? Anyone knows that? Everyone knows, right? Okay. Now, first of all, let me tell you how to do a .1x. We'll see it later, but I'm just trying to tell you. I'm not asking this username and password, guys. This everyone knows. I'm asking to add the username and password on the NIC adapter. I don't know whether I have added it or not. Let me open my control panel over here. Network, change adapter. So let me check. Yeah, can you see over here? Right now, only two options are showing: networking as well as sharing. That means on this particular box, right now I cannot either perform or I cannot perform anything. I cannot perform .1x authentication. That means with the help of username and password. There will be certain devices on which, this is what I'm trying to say, there will be certain devices like your printer, right? Few of the printers, few of the fax machines, few of the access point, not all, few of them, right? Where you cannot do what I'm going to do it right now. In that case, how to do an authentication for that? In that case, we'll take their MAC addresses. What we're gonna take? We're gonna take their MAC addresses, and they must be connected with one, what you call that, switches over there with the different ports over there, and then we do have an ISE. Okay? No matter you are using a username or no matter you are using a MAC address, in both the cases, EAP is the protocol. EAP full form is what? Extensible Authentication Protocol. Let me write it over here. EAP. EAP is what? Extensible Authentication Protocol. Okay? It's a protocol which is used to pass the authentication informations between the supplicant and the authenticator. Okay. Next, this EAP protocol between the supplicant and authenticator will be encapsulated uh, within the LAN segment, and that protocol is called as EAP over LAN. This is called as EAP over LAN. EAP over LAN. Layer 2 segment. Layer 2 segments. Once the authenticator receives this message, it will send the same EAP which carries the username and password of the supplicant, or it can be the MAC address of the supplicant. So it can be a MAC address of the supplicant also, which carries the username and password. So once the authenticator receives the message, it will send the same EAP which carries this username, password, or maybe a MAC address of the supplicant to the AAA server, and between the AAA and authenticator server, it is a layer 3 connectivity which cannot be sent over the LAN. Correct, over the LAN. So authenticator de-encapsulate the packet, EAP over LAN, and encapsulate it with a new protocol which is called as radius, or it can be a TACAX plus. These are protocol, right? I hope you got an idea now. Once it is being done, so here the EAP, here also EAP, here also EAP. What are the different types of EAPs are also there? We'll slowly look into that. This is EAP over LAN, this is EAP over LAN, this is EAP over LAN, this is EAP over LAN. All these are what the EAP over LANs which is being presented over there. This is my authenticator. Okay, and this authenticator will carry those messages. Now I was actually showing you how to do that particular thing. Now let's move further. To do the .1x authentication, if this particular device is not capable of doing a .1x, so what I will be doing, I will be going into config, IP config, and on the interface, this interface where IP config all, or otherwise now I can take it from here also. If not from IP config, I will write it from here. Let's say, for example, this is the MAC address. I can take a MAC address from here, or this ASAV status details. I can take a MAC address from here, and this MAC address, I will be putting in my ISE, and your EAP message will carry this also MAC address towards ISE. If both matches, see there are two things. Either this, I'll just write OF7D. What as a administrator, what I'm going to do, OF7D, I'm going to add this MAC address in the ISE internal database. I'm going to add it, and if the same MAC address the EAP is carrying till your ISE, if both the messages which a user has or the administrator has added into the ISE and the EAP which carrying the same MAC address what do you call that, get when both the MAC address get matched, then only the authentication is going to happen. This is what I'm trying to say. Okay, when both the MAC addresses, one which is carrying by a protocol, another which administrator has added into the ISE, both messages got matched, then only the authentication is going to happen. So there will be certain devices in which you cannot add what, the .1x features, which is nothing but on the basis of the username and the password, right? That is the MAB authentication. Okay. Now the question is, first let me, Sajan, I'll give you your answer. Give me 2 minutes. How to do this authentication? You just go onto your Windows machine, enable what the services. There is a service option which is present over there. These are the service boxes over here, right? And in this service box, somewhere in the down you will see a wired authentication rule, this wired auto config. Now this system is by default, it's not being started, it's being stopped. This is, you can see that .1x, the wired auto config for the .1x services, responsible for to support what, IEEE .1x. I just gonna do what is start. The services are going to get started. See now, attempting to authenticate, to authenticate. That means on all the interfaces, now it is going to start authenticating. Now what is happening? It is sending the EAP message. But EAP message is, see, it is undefined network has been defined over there. It is unidentified network. What is going to happen? Which we'll see much more in detail in the later section. But just I want to tell you one thing, what is happening. If on a PC, you have enabled the .1x feature, but if we have not defined any username and password, the first EAP message will go as a blank. The second EAP message will also go as a blank. The third EAP message is also going as a blank. Blank means when, until unless, no matter you have enabled the .1x, but until you don't define a username on that interface, three messages will go as a blank. In the fourth message, the EAP will carry the MAC address of that name. So let's say, for example, in a case in the ISE, if the username, let's say for example, is Nitich and the password is Cisco123 is present, along with that, if I added the MAC address of that NIC adapter, let's say for example 4FED, I have defined both. In a case, I want that if any XYZ reason the username is not working, then at least this I should authenticate this interface on the basis of the MAC address which is being present over there. Does this make sense with everyone? Is this point clear? I can do both the things. In the starting, 802.1x is a framework defined in IEEE segment. Under that, you have three important devices. What is called as you have supplicant, you have then after that supplicant, authenticator, as well as AAA devices. In the starting, whenever we used to have a username and the password, that itself has given a name called as a .1x authentication. But down the line, they have added one more thing in the same work, which is called as MAP. So whenever a device is getting authenticated under what? MAP on the basis of the MAC address, that authentication is called as a MAP authentication. Whenever a username is being used for a client PC to get authenticated, that is called as a .1x authentication. Now does it make sense? Instead of writing like this, they are writing .1x authentication. So not to make you confused again, in the last, I'll write it like this. 802.1x is a framework in which we do .1x authentication, which is on the basis of the username and the password. We do have MAP authentication, which will be used on the basis of MAC addresses. The total number of devices, the type of components will be, one is a supplicant, one is the authenticator, and one is your AAA server. A AAA server can be ISE, which is the best practice in the production. It can be any LDAP server. It can be in Active Directory or Kerberos, anything. Your authenticator can be a switch, layer 3 switch especially, which supports radius. Authenticator can be a WLC controller. It can be ASA firewall. It can be iOS routers and the switches. It can be a Nexus box. Any box which supports your EAP along with that what? EAP along with the radius. That device will become an authenticator. A supplicant can be an IP phone. A supplicant can be a PC, a laptop. A supplicant can be, apart from that, what? Any device which can be defined on the basis of a username or on the MAC address. Okay, nutshell is cleared with everyone. Now what I'm going to do, you can see that right click over here, properties. Can you see that one more option has been added over here? What is this? Authentication, and it's being enabled now. So select this option to provide what? Network access for the Ethernet adapter. Enable IEEE 802.1x authentication. So the moment I enable the services, right, this option has been added. But no matter it is being added, if you want to remove it, you can remove it. That means the authentication will never gonna happen on this. That means it is not never going to send the EAP messages. But if you want that, you can click it over here, and then you can see that the type of protocol which is being used over here is what? PEEP protocol, which is present over there. We'll see this tomorrow. What are the different types of EAP messages are there? Over here, when you go into this, you can see that use computer authentication, username and authentication. I'll explain that tomorrow. And when you go here, you define that. Let's say, for example, Nitich and Cisco. So whatever the username I've defined over here on this particular interface, how I did it, I'll explain it one more time. Right click, get into the properties, go into the authentication. By default, whatever the protocol you want to use, right now this device supports your PEEP. or you can get into the settings. You can go with what the servers also, MS Chap, EAP, MS Chap, Smart Certificate. We'll all talk tomorrow, no problem. But here, what I'm trying to say, you do enable what username, give a username, and whatever the username, this username which I'm going to provide it over here, right? And the same username. Right now, I have a PC. The username that I'm defining is Nitij with a password called as Cisco. This EAP message will carry this information towards a device called as an authenticator over a LAN 2 segment, layer 2 segment, and that message will go towards the ISE also with the help of EAP only. But that will be carried, transport will be radius. If the very same name Nitij and the password Cisco is there, the radius will tell that boss, yes, it's been there. An authenticator will tell him the same thing, and it will get an IP from the DHCP pool or whether it's being given manually. Does this make sense with everyone?